How the heck are you guys? I am Fastidious, and I want to talk about something pretty serious today. Is this the biggest trap banner in Watcher of Realms history? This is actually a rerun, so they've run this banner before, and I did not say that the first time they ran this banner. And that's really for two reasons. The smaller reason is that it was the debut of Lynx. So anyone interested in her, this was your first ever chance to get her. That's kind of appealing. To me, it's the opposite of appealing. This character is a monstrosity, but whatever. And then obviously, Lynx is paired with Elowyn on that original banner and on the rerun now. Elowyn is still in many ways, for certain things, the best hero in the game. She is an absolute queen. Her kit is wild. The triple S, blah, 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 blah. That original run, you had the opportunity to get a character who we knew would be bad in most areas, had some mid to better than that potential in things like GVG, especially progression levels of GVG. All we could kind of do is speculate. We knew she wouldn't be amazing, and we knew there was a lot of places she wouldn't be good at all. But she had a little tiny bit of potential, and she was new, and I guess some people are into this. And obviously, she was paired with this absolute queen, this goddess Elowyn. So in no ways could you have called that a giant trap banner. I may have even used the word trap at the time just because we knew Lynx wasn't that special. But it would be hyperbolic and clickbait and absolute BS at that time, whenever it was. Maybe April or May 2025, that feels about right. It's now September 29th for anyone watching in the future. So it's been a little bit. But now, this rerun, holy moly, this is it. I think this is the greatest trap banner of all time. I mean, there's one competitor, and I wish I could remember everything on it. I think I know it, but I'm not 100% sure. It was a 3-unit banner featuring Silas, Aurum, and I don't remember the other unit. I want to say maybe Ezrin, but there was like a Silas and Aurum banner, which is like, I think that whoever it was way worse than Ezrin, actually. It was Silas and 2 pieces of garbage. Silas, Kriya, and Aurum. Does that sound right? That probably was a competitor. However, Silas is so awesome, but he's not Elowyn, right? Pulling one Silas, especially if you don't have Virna, is not just going to instantly change your account in every single individual piece of content. If you do have Virna and you're stuck strictly on DPS, yes, in theory it could, but for the average player in general, no, he would not make that impact, though he'd make a great impact. Elowyn, for anyone who did not have her at the time, and still doesn't have her, would make the craziest change. However, let's get to the second reason I think it's now a giant trap and wasn't originally. Elowyn used to be the queen for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons was her status as the best rage regenerator in the game by a mile, and no one could hold the flame. Yes, there's a couple specific pieces of content where a unit like Hollow could compete, and in general, we had units like Hollow or even Leia, stuff like that, where they were relevant in their own way. I mean, they both have good kits, period, but in terms of rage regeneration. But because Elowyn, if we go down to healers here, was the only unit in the game that had, while she was deployed, map-wide, very significant passive rage regeneration from Nature's Favor over here, this passive, she was in a league of her own, right? On top of the rest of her kit, which we will discuss in this video, because when I talk about what you probably can guess I'm about to say, some people I feel like have then lost the forest for the trees and now think Elowyn is inferior to the character I'm about to say. But she was one of one. She was the only one that could do this. And what was it? 3-4 weeks ago, in steps Irelis. And this passive over here, Hymn of Prayer, is identical to Elowyn's, except a little bit better. So if we can compare, it's hard to see here because they're not at max skills, but wouldn't you know it, I've got both. Of course, I've skilled them up. So let's make that comparison now. We can start with Elowyn, and we'll start with Nature's Favor. Every 3 seconds, all allies anywhere on the field, if Elowyn is deployed, are going to get rage regeneration that comes out to 1% rage per second, because it's 3% every 3 seconds. But that's actually kind of mistranslated. This is correct. It actually is 1% rage per second. That's what it is when it's maxed out. If we go to Irelis, while the hero's on the field, allies recover an additional 1% rage per second. It's not in her range. It's not anywhere. It's just like Elowyn. If she's deployed, every other deployed ally, map-wide, will get the 1% rage per second. However, she has a little kicker that does make her better. In certain content, it makes her much, much better. In other content, it makes her a little bit better. But basically, whichever allies at any moment have Serene Breath, they're going to get 2% rage per second, which is the strongest in the frickin' game. That's crazy. And they will get that 2% nonstop until they lose their Serene Breath. And then they just go down to 1%, which was the previous passive, constant map-wide thing we'd ever seen in the form of Elowyn. So if you're very curious, very quickly, I've got a huge, actually, I think I have 2 big videos on Irelis, but I have one huge guide on her where I explain it. Her kit is kind of confusing. Basically, the last 2 units she has healed will have Serene Breath. And among the many benefits they get from holding Serene Breath, they get this double rage regen per second. 2% per second is ridiculous. In 50 seconds, if you didn't have any other sources of rage, which that will never be the case, you get a full rage bar. Ridiculous. The reason I say in some content it's incredible, and some it isn't, it all comes down to when you get the right people having Serene Breath. So in content where you need very few people healed, it is just phenomenal, and you know who's going to be healed. In other content, her rage is pretty similar to Elowyn. But that's the thing. Her basement is being as good as Elowyn. That's her worst case scenario. If the Serene Breath is in the wrong spot, she's as good as Elowyn. So for that reason, Elowyn is not worse. She's still so special because the rest of their kits are a total departure from one another. And that's where I say people are losing the forest from the trees. They're very, very, very different heroes in a lot of ways. They just share one, their best skill is just the same, right? And then Irelis is slightly better. So that's why the comparison is natural, but some people think of Irelis as a strict Elowyn replacement. In certain content, yes, where you're using Elowyn basically just for the rage regeneration, but in a lot of other content, it is not true. Elowyn is really unique and different. Irelis's main things, say Elowyn's later because we're going to go deeper on that. But Irelis's main things are she can put out some reductions to give more, survivability to her units. She can do the occasional death save where she does unyielding to some units. She does these very good burst built up over time single target heals. There's a lot of nice stuff in there, right? That is not Elowyn. However, the sheer existence of Irelis, when this banner is being rerun now, after the original run of the banner, does change your ability to stomach Lynx. Lynx is way worse than we ever dreamed of. We knew she'd be bad, big picture. We thought she might have some niche PvP stuff, particularly GVG. It is niche, but it's even way more niche than we thought. And outside of that, she just completely stinks. So she's a much bigger stinker than we originally realized. And Elowyn, the main reason you go for her is that passive. And that passive is still super OP, but it's just not one of one like it used to be. So now, can you target an Elowyn, even if you don't have her, when there's a huge risk you're going to not get her, right? It's a 60% chance you're not going to get either banner unit, 80% chance you're not going to get Elowyn. These are all rough numbers. And then there's a 20% chance, instead of getting Elowyn or another unit, you're going to get freaking Lynx. That makes this banner a crazy, crazy trap. You got to be really, really, really careful. So I just wanted to get that out early. I'll probably still do a should you summon later in the week, but I know people are already going to start stressing about this banner. Whenever Elowyn comes on raid up, it's a huge deal in the game, as it should be. But this banner, I think, is a really, really big trap. So actually, a lot of people that don't have Elowyn may want to consider skipping this banner, which is insane to say. Some people, though, absolutely should still go for it. Now, who are those people? Let's start getting into... Actually, before that, let's talk about the rest of her kit and why it's pissing me off that people keep comparing her so one-to-one with Irelis. Because outside of Hymn of Prayer and Nature's Favor, the similarities really aren't there. They have totally different ranges. In certain content, Elowyn's range is entirely superior. In other content, Irelis is. But I'd say more often than not, there's a lot of things you're really happy with this 3x4 off-center range where she's kind of in it, as opposed to Irelis, who's back here in the middle. Obviously when they're at full promo, Elowyn's here, Irelis is here. The range is kind of the weird place to start, but Irelis is strictly single target, right? She can do the occasional extra heal to Serene Breath holding allies, especially if you've got some awakenings, but for all intents and purposes, she's strictly single target. Elowyn is fundamentally multi-target and then full AoE during her ultimate. Elowyn has an enormous cleanse and a huge range when she ults. Irelis doesn't have any of that. Irelis has good stuff, but I'm just saying what Elowyn has that Irelis doesn't. Elowyn has the Wood Elf, who is the only extended range summoner healer in the entire game. And additionally, it does not say it here, but the Wood Elf is also a cost generator. The Wood Elf can generate 3 cost. It costs 5 costs to deploy, and you recoup 8 costs when you pick it up. That's just insane. And all in all, Elowyn is just super special. The unique range, the very good range on the ultimate, the multi-target heals, the ults, the dispel, and then, of course, the Wood Elf. So it's not to say she's better or worse than Irelis. It all depends on the content. But to act like you have one, you don't need the other, for a lot of content, that's just strictly false. It really is. So Elowyn is still super duper desirable. But why am I saying some people should skip it? Well, I feel like we're for sure due for a limited very soon. It has been a minute. It could certainly be a new one, or they're just going to keep rerunning the OP ones to milk everybody for money or whatever. Who knows what they're up to? But I just think something big is going to be coming. If you do have, I will say, divine summons, right? Because this banner is going to be on special invocation. These are your blue rare summons, and it's going to be on divine summoning. These are your gold legendary summons. Maybe a decent opportunity here if you want to do some gambling and some YOLO. But otherwise, the only way you can really confidently go for Elowyn, and even then you could still basically miss the 50-50, is if you have enough summons to pull 2 legendaries on one of these banners. Because that's when you're up to the 89.5% composite chance you'll have hit one of the 2. And on that second pull, as a standalone, you have an 85% chance you're going to hit one of these 2. So you get that really good progressive banner rate up. If you can get there, basically a coin flip to get Elowyn versus Lynx, I think that's a coin flip that's worthy, but that should only be for people that are really comfy on their savings, really can go for that extra, and can stomach being disappointed in hitting Lynx anyway, or being like the 11% of people that have to go to a third try. So if that's you and you don't have Elowyn, for sure go. Like if you're a decent spender or you just have a lot saved and you can do 300 summons or whatever, I really think probably worth it if you don't have her. I will say if you don't have her or Irelis, then it's just getting a lot more exciting. But the way I feel like in the past, me and many others have advertised every Elowyn banner for non-Elowyn owners as the ultimate no-brainer. She's the best character, just go do it. I don't think that's the case anymore because they keep pairing her with frickin' Lynx, and Irelis now exists in the game. So I do think a lot of people should consider skipping it. If you have a really specific situation, you can let me know down in the comments, and hopefully I can help out. I do also want to say this video is going to be sponsored by Ethereum Restart. You're going to hear a lot about them over the next 48 hours or so. There's just so much going on in the game. And, through my sponsorship with them, I do a couple integrations, a couple standalone videos on this channel a month. And I just think I have to do it all now because there's so much crazy good stuff going on. So humor me for 30 seconds. If we look over here, I'm actually on Soulja Boy's account because he's lending it to me to film a video. So thank you, Soulja Boy. But I'll just give me 20 seconds. Click on events, go here. There's a million things. There's a million things you can do, whether you're a brand new player, a longtime player who's never taken a break, or a returning player. But the number one thing I want to highlight here is if you log in for just 2 days, on this day, you get a selector ticket for an LD, a light dark SSR. This is the equivalent of like the very best of the ancient exclusive legendaries in Watcher Realms. And you get this ticket 1,000,000% for free. Just log in 2 days. If you log in at the end of one day before reset, you could be logged in for 10 minutes and get this. And from this, you can get all 7 of these are insanely good characters, but we do have Lily, who is right here. She's the best character in the game. And it's like they're giving you if there was an ancient exclusive Elowyn or Valara, it's like they're giving you Diao Chan on your first 48 hours in the game. And this is available to everybody. It's just freaking ridiculous. So if you want to play, if you ever pondered the idea, now is the time to do it. I'll have the link in the description in the top pinned comment. Thank you, Ethereum Restart. Let's get back to this and let's just get into our conclusions. It's like, how risk averse are you? How much are you thinking ahead to the future and what's coming? I will say if you're a very, very young account, I'd say it's a kind of a no-brainer banner. Those would be the people I'd most suggest this to, because it's only a 20% chance you hit Lynx every time, I guess 42.5% or whatever the second time. But if you're just going for like the one legendary on a new account, you've got a decent shot at Elowyn, 1-5, and you've got a pretty good shot to hit not Lynx. So it's basically an 80% chance you get Elowyn or anyone but Elowyn that isn't Lynx, which is a solid place to be if you want to take some gambling for Elowyn and you have a pretty barren roster. But everyone else, I think, should be really, really thoughtful about this, because this is potentially quite a trap that a lot of people are going to fall into. And they know exactly what they're doing. This is so gross, seeing such unbelievable quality next to such, I think that's how I have to end it. How else could I put it? Très magnifique, wow, mamma mia, find a trash can, barf emoji, right? That's what this is. So if Irelis didn't exist in the game and there wasn't a second way to get the truly unbelievable thing that they both have, even though the rest of both of their kits is really, really good, it is for both of them. Hymn of Prayer for Irelis and Nature's Favor for Elowyn. Both of these ladies, it's the second passive that makes these units bonkers. And now that they both exist, it takes away from each other a little bit because they're not one of one, they're one of two, right? So if Elowyn was paired with something good, then I'd be like, you have to pull on this banner. Like if this was freaking, Let's think of a great example. This is Elowyn and Hex, right? If you don't have Elowyn or Hex, this is the banner from your dreams, right? Let's say this was Elowyn. I'm trying to think of the Elowyn and Aelin, right? That'd be crazy. There's got to be something even juicier I'm not thinking of. Elowyn and Numera. Elowyn and Beatrix, right? Like, that would be huge. Elowyn and Boreas. It all depends on your account. But Elowyn and Lynx, I mean, it doesn't get much worse. A pairing for Elowyn doesn't get much worse than Lynx. There you go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I challenged myself before this video. If you made it to the end, let me know. But I challenged myself before this video that I wasn't going to do any cuts. And some of you might be thinking, especially if you mostly listen to me, what do you mean cuts? Go watch any of my videos. I usually cut, unless I'm lucky, about 20 to 50 times a video because I have to do little stop and starts. Not one cut in this video, baby. I'm pretty happy about that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I've been Fastidious. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.